Serpent Temple. This week we're doing a non-card reading episode. We're just going to talk about music. We're going to talk mainly about 3 albums this week. So we're going to talk about an older album, which is going to be The Satanist by Behemoth, which came out in 2014. We're going to talk about an album that came out not so recently, but recently enough, which is going to be Gaal's Wyrd's GastiR Ghosts Invited, which came out in 2019. And then we're going to do something a bit more recent, which is going to be Cryptic Shift's Visitations from Enceladus, which came out in 2020. So, we're going to talk about those albums. This is Floyd.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, I'm Nina. We also have a man behind the camera, Shem. You may hear him laughing at certain points during the episode, such as now. Okay, so what did you think of those 3 albums? What do you want to talk about first?
I think we should go in chronological order.
Okay.
So I think let's start with the Satanist, which is, funnily enough, and it's the thing with the Satanist is, I like it. I do like it a lot, but the amount of people that have lauded it as like the best metal album of like the decade, and it won like most year-end lists on the polls. I mean, I think it's a very good album. I wouldn't have it at that upper echelon, and it's not even my favourite Behemoth album. That's the crazy thing.
What's your favourite one?
I really like Demigod personally.
Okay.
But that was the first album I really got into, because like I got into death metal before I got into black metal, and I really was like a fan of the riff, and it took me a while to appreciate like the atmosphere of the more black metal-y side of the spectrum. So, but by the time the Satanist had come out, like I was already quite into the black metal side of things. But it was, and I think Satanist is a good blend of like, it's almost like every Behemoth album done previously, but kind of meshed into one, which I think is part of the reason why it's so successful.
Yeah, I think it's like musically it's a very impressive album. Like, I don't consider myself a Behemoth fan, but I do like that album. There's many reasons I'm not a Behemoth fan, but yeah, like I think musically it's like super impressive, and I agree with what you say. Like, you can really hear like that band's come into their sound in like a really impressive way on that album. Like, I love the balance between like rhythm and melody and the vocals. It's all done like so well. It's woven together. Yeah.
I think the story behind it as well, with everything that he kind of went through with the leukemia and then coming back, I think it was quite a triumphant return to form for them. And I think that definitely comes across on the album, because when you listen to like a lot of the previous albums, like even Demigod for example, there's quite a lot of like a dual layering in the vocals and stuff, and the way it's delivered, like it's has a bit more of that less human appeal that a lot of death metal tends to have. Whereas like the Satanist just felt a bit more raw, was a bit more organic. Like there was hardly any effects on the voice, well, it didn't sound like there was many effects on the voice, and I think it just came across so much more genuine than the other albums did, which is why I think it kind of reached a lot of the metal fandom a lot more than the previous releases.
Would you say it's symphonic, like specifically the first song, Blow Your Trumpets, Gabriel? Because there's the inclusion of the brass, but I don't feel like it's like a massive like Dimmu Borgir-esque.
See, I see. The thing is, I would say it's symphonic, especially the last track as well, with Father or Satan or Son, because it's got like all the trumpets, the way it comes in at the end.
Yeah.
Like it's quite bombastic and it fits well.
Yeah.
But like it's blended well, and that was always my kind of gripe with a lot of symphonic music.
Exactly.
It's not blended well. It's like you've got like really harsh, like, so whether it be tremolo picking or just, you know, like chromatic riffs, and then these really like obviously just edited straight in, like
this shit synth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we know your distaste for synths.
I fucking hate synth. Like, I only like very specific, fine, mellow synths. Like, none of that fucking, shit synth stuff. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's an interesting take. That's a question that I definitely had about the album, like the inclusion of those. And that's something that I think Gaal's Wyrd and like Ward Jr. and bands like that do really well.
Yeah.
I think that's coming into its own now, is like people using like actual instruments or like good synths with things like that.
Yeah, and it's just, you know, it's when it's genuine, that's the thing. When you can tell it's the actual instruments being used, as opposed to just something that's been done on, like, say, like a MIDI keyboard or something.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it just gives it that much more of a genuine kind of appeal. And I think that's why the Satanist just kind of resonates with a lot of people, because it's just blended so well, and musically it's a lot more, I'd say it's probably a lot more mid-paced than a lot of Behemoth's previous stuff. So it's a bit more accessible in that regard. There's like quite a good structure and flow of the songs. Like it's more like a cohesive album with some of the other works where you could tell there was like, say, 9 individual tracks, whereas this one, you kind of, you know, you've got like a crescendo coming up near the middle of songs like Aura Aura Pro Nobis Lucifer, which is like quite a good kind of mid-pace and you've got like even a bit of a breakdown towards the end, whereas like it just the way it ends with O Father, O Satan, O Son is just purely, just like quite slow paced and quite brooding and just a real bombastic finish to the album.
Yeah, you can tell that the whole thing's been composed and like really well thought out, whereas like some bands are just like, oh, we wrote some songs and we put them in a particular order, and that's like something that I may have done at some point, but no, it's good. The thing I like most about the Satanist, I'd say, is the cover.
Yeah.
It's by an artist called Denis Fourkas Kostromatin, who's a Russian artist, and his stuff is wild. Like, I thoroughly recommend anyone checking out his work on like Instagram. He's called @DenisFourkasOfficial. I discovered him on Tumblr in like 2009 when I was a teenager. Like, he was like one of my favourite artists for a while. He's actually now done stuff for like Wolves in the Throne Room, Grave Miasma, Children of Bodom. Bands like that. So he's well known-ish, but not as well known as certain other artists, I'd say.
It's a great album cover, and I'm pretty sure this is fact. Did they not use some of his cancerous blood mixing with the palette used to paint the face?
Yeah.
I always thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's super cool. That is a sick thing to do, literally. Yeah, no, I really like I like Messe Noir with like this like Akakoker-esque kind of moments where it sounds like a shower in the sand and intractable. Like, it's really, there's like so much like variation in the album that I really dig. Like I've listened to it like I'd say 3 or 4 times, and listened to it again just for this, and it was really nice to go back to it. But yeah, I will say like some of the lyrics though, I never read the lyrics until I listened to it this time, because I do like reading lyrics if I want to understand an album, and oh my god, I hate the lyrics. I really hate the lyrics. They're done so well. Ghaal is so clever and he's really intelligent, but I mean, yeah, there's a lot to be said for some of the lyrics. I think this is, so I am not cancelling Behemoth. I don't want to cancel anyone. I'm just going to say that there are certain things that people have said about Behemoth that are criticisms, such as the fact that Ghaal hangs out apparently with members of Impaled Nazarene who have certain views about certain things that aren't exactly views that you would want people to have that are kind. I'm not saying this very well. He hangs out with some Nazi folk, and basically, like, he's also said some stuff that isn't necessarily super left-wing, but he's also not super right-wing. He's just not, he's one of those people that say they're apolitical. So take that as you will. With that in mind, he has some lyrics that I don't know how I feel about them. So in Blow Your Trumpets, Gabriel, he has a line where I'm assuming he's taking on the viewpoint of Satan, and he's criticising God, which is something that Ghaal does because he doesn't like religion. Which is, fair enough, man. But he doesn't like religion to the extent that he, I quote, says, "Hosanna, Hosanna, tribe of Judah decimate. Hosanna, Hosanna, root of David eradicate." And I was just thinking, like, who's the tribe of Judah? And who's the root of David? And I'm not super clued up when it comes to certain bits of the Bible, but I feel like that might be the Jews. Correct me if I'm wrong.
See, this is the thing. This is where I think it's interesting and good that we're talking about this, because we're coming from 2 different perspectives. Because when it comes to music, for me, like, I'll openly admit I'm one of those guys that never really paid attention to the lyrics.
Yeah.
I used to, when I used to buy CDs and actually had nothing. I didn't have a mobile phone on the bus. And I used to actually bring like 2 or 3 CDs in with me, because I was thinking like, I'll have some albums to listen to on the way in and on the way back. Yeah. And then I'd read the booklets then, but I'm going to be fully honest, ever since the introduction of like streaming services and even like iTunes, I just never went out of my way to study lyrics. Like, and the problem with extreme metal is a lot of it is kind of indecipherable a lot of the time.
Right, you don't hear that, and like, a lot of the time as well when it comes to music, you have to understand, like, is this the view of the artist? Is this a view of the artist through the lens of like another character? Like, you don't know, and like there are lines that need to be drawn in different places, and sometimes people are just taking on like a persona. However, like, I personally don't necessarily like this kind of persona. Regardless of what he's trying to say, I don't think he's saying it in a way that I want to listen to that. Because this is a problem, because I love the music in the Satanist, but I don't like the words under the music. And like that's going to be something that I'm going to try and deal with going forward, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to listen to it as much as I used to, which was only going to be like once a year anyway. So not a big deal for me. Probably not a big deal for Behemoth fans, because if you like Behemoth, you like Behemoth. But I think it's good to acknowledge these things. But one thing that really impressed me is in Oro Pro Nobis Lucifer, which means pray for us, Lucifer. He basically makes a shit ton of Shakespeare references in the lyrics, which is like specifically he's referencing a scene in Hamlet where Hamlet is whispering into Ophelia's ear, which is his sister, by the way. He's whispering sweet nothings into her ear, and let me find the lyrics. So I wrote them down. I wrote them down somewhere, and I can barely read my own writing now because I wrote it in a car whilst it was moving at full speed. But basically, he's talking to Ophelia, and he's telling her, he's referring to sweet nothings and telling her to get thee to a nunnery. I'm sure some people who care about Shakespeare recognise the scene. It's a very famous one. But basically, nothing in Shakespearean slang means vagina. It literally means the lady parts. It's a very sexual term. So the term, when you whisper sweet nothings, it literally means you're like saying sexy shit into someone's ear. And getting someone to a nunnery meant getting someone to a whorehouse, because that was the term for a whorehouse, was a nunnery. So he's telling his sister to get to a brothel, and he's basically like flirting with her. And like Nurgle's basically like referring to this in the context of the Virgin Mary, calling her a massive slut, basically. And he also uses Old English slang, which is cunning, which is where the word cunt comes from, by the way, because I'm allowed to say it. So basically, it comes from the word kenning, Old English kenning, which means knowing. In the Bible, knowledge is sexual knowledge, specifically, like in that word. So in Genesis, Adam has knowledge of Eve, which means they have sex, they like fuck in the garden, and like the apple, the tree of knowledge, it's a tree of fucking. Like, you know, that's why original sin is sexual. That's why women have always been lauded as, like, you know, horrible sluts in the church. That's the thing. So it's cool that Nurgle's acknowledging that and he's aware of it. But he's also, like, you know, dropping C-bombs. Referring to ladies in a rather misogynistic language, which is, again, something that I'm personally not a fan of. I don't really listen to that kind of metal anymore. I did when I was a teenager. I thought it was funny, but I don't really anymore. But I think some people will enjoy it. I think Nurgle's doing some artistic shit. That's my TED Talk. Thank you for coming.
And, well, I've just realised that the word cunnilinguist, I never realised how close that was to the word cunt before.
There you go.
It just shows how observant I am. But no, it's an interesting take, and I think it's good to analyse lyrics, because I just don't think it's something that's done enough, really, by a lot of people, but even by myself especially. But like, I agree. I think the whole use of some of the Shakespearean references and stuff, that's quite cool. And it's interesting, because I've always had a complicated relationship with Shakespeare, because I felt like it was always something that was forced on us at school.
Yeah.
Like, I had to study it every year, no matter which facet of English literature you got to.
Oh, they teach it so badly.
Oh, I know. And it was like, we had to do one for GCSEs and one for A-levels and one for uni as well. And like, I mean, I liked Shakespeare, but I think I was just it was a bit much by that point.
The most metal Shakespeare play is too violent to teach at school. It's called Titus Andronicus. And it's more brutal, I swear to God, than Game of Thrones or anything like that. It's so fucked up. There's a scene where I think the daughter of like an emperor is like raped, and her arms are cut off, and then she's like impaled on a stick. And then she has like a monologue. And she's just like, la 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 la, like there's blood coming. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. There's a film with Anthony Hopkins of Titus Andronicus. I recommend it. It's like super fucking brutal. It's a good Shakespeare play. It's honestly, it's one of the last that he wrote, I think, where like he just went fucking crazy and it was like, I'm just gonna write something really violent. To be fair, like, I don't know if anyone's interested, but if anyone is interested in the lyrics I was referring to in Oro Pro Nobis Lucifer, the specific verse is cunning as shroud of Turin, on the autopsy of God, creation ex nihilo, creda undone. Creation ex nihilo means creation out of nothing. So that's the kind of like, the whole song is like, you know, giving birth to shitty stuff. So that, yeah, that's that. But yeah. Titus Andronicus, Shakespeare, Blood.
I'll jump on that. Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, so that's my take on Behemoth, basically.
Good. Well, you quite like the Satanist, don't you, Shem?
Yeah, I love it. It rocks. I think Ghaal rocks.
I think his Instagram is hilarious.
Yeah, I love his Instagram. I love how he's always sharing pictures of penises. I just think he's great.
When he's not being like too much of an edgelord,
Yeah,
I find it interesting that
he's
he's one of like the few black metal people that doesn't take himself too seriously.
Mm.
Although I hate how like all his lyrics say OV. It's just so silly.
It's funny, you know, our first house had it was a Victorian house that had the V's instead of the U's.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It's always confused me as a child before someone explained it to me. So this is what you had to do before you had internet. You just had to live in confusion before you could Google something.
That would be really confusing reading black metal lyrics. Is it a V or a U? What is it? What's going on? Yeah.
But what would you... one thing I was going to ask was, if you had to rank the album, what would you rank it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Okay, 1 to 10. That's complicated. I think I give it a 7.
Yeah, I think that's... See, this is the thing, because I feel like when you get to a ranking system, I feel like people are always overly generous with our ranking system.
I think you're right.
Because for me, something like a 10 would have to be something that would have changed my life.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, like, the amount of times, you know, people were thrown out sort of like 9s, 8s and 10s sort of willy-nilly. I'm just like, well, I mean, is it really that good of an album? I would say 7's quite good, because I would say that's like a pretty damn brilliant album.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, you're right. I think for a lot of metalheads it's a 7.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm giving it a rating that's necessarily not my... I think I'm doing the music journalist rating system where it's not my opinion. So I think my opinion of it is probably a 4. Like a 4.5. I think if it weren't for the lyrics, I'd give it a good 7 personally, because musically it's brilliant.
I think it's an 8 for me.
Ooh, nice. It's a round pregnant number.
They say a round pregnant number.
It is.
Yeah, yeah. I'd go for. I hate to be that guy. I'd probably go for a 7.5.
Nice. Get into the decimal system here.
7.75.
Rounded to the nearest number. Yeah.
But no, it's good, and I think, you know, I understand why it's such a successful album.
Same,
because,
yeah.
you know, not a lot of people, I think, were too privy to Behemoth before that album. I think especially everything with the story behind it and stuff, because I think just for me personally, I'm more of a fan of sort of Evangelion and Demigods, just because I just like the meatier, crunchier riffs. I felt like that's what they kind of excelled at, and the more sort of the fast-paced tracks, like Slave Shall Serve from Demigod, probably one of my favourite tracks, and such a good song.
Such a good song.
They played it live. I remember I went with a few friends to watch them. It was them, Wolves in the Throne Room and At the Gates. And
Nice.
I will say one thing about Behemoth as well. Their stage show recently has been upped massively.
Nice.
Like live, they are such a spectacle now. Like they've got the whole thing with the black confetti that blows out when they start playing Lucifer, which is really cool. But when it's funny because like when Slave Shall Serve came on, I was with my friend and I just turned 1 second, he was there, and I turned back when like the first blast beat came in, and he was already like in the pit, like circling. Like it's just that much of a sort of a banger. But no, I think that's just the era of Behemoth I kind of liked, because I felt like, you know, I just felt like they were just so good at writing really aggressive, fast-paced music. And it's like going on to what I was saying before, like I like the Satanist from the perspective of how it kind of broke them into more of the metal mainstream consciousness. But for me, I actually think it is actually a lot more sanitized than previous efforts.
Okay.
But a bit more human, maybe, like I was saying, it's a bit rawer, and it comes from, you know, especially with everything he experienced and went through and came back with. It's more of a human experience, but at the same time, I just think it was just a bit more sanitized.
That's really interesting.
Which stopped me from enjoying it as much as previous efforts.
Huh, so like you think it was more commercial?
Yes, I don't know if commercial is the right term. I think just it definitely focused more on the atmosphere of the riffs as opposed to the actual riffs of itself. And And I will say it's a more of a cohesive effort in the sense that it's more of an album. It's a work of art, everything even down to the artwork as well. Like it's presented as an actual art piece, which I think was really well done. Like was your favourite part is the artwork, and I think the artwork actually really reflects the music quite well.
Yeah,
to the point you listen to the music and I can actually picture the artwork in my head.
Exactly. Like I haven't looked at that artwork in a while, but I know exactly what it is. And a lot of people when it came out just made it like the profile picture on like Facebook or WhatsApp. Yeah, it's so iconic. Yeah, that reminds me of Yob's Our Raw Heart, because that was a similar kind of deal with Mike Scheidt like writing about his illness.
Yeah, because he had that diverticulosis or something. Was it
something like
some
reticulosis? Yeah, it was like his intestines. It's a horrible, painful disease. And yeah, he was in hospital and he thought he was gonna die. And like after that came out, it was so emotional. And like I remember me and Shem went to watch at the Black Heart. We went to watch a free show that I think Old Empire put on, and everyone was crying. Everyone cried. Yeah, and like Mike is like so wholesome. I feel like he's the opposite of Nurgle. He really is. It's like the opposing end of like Behemoth is Yob's album, where it's like a similar kind of deal, but not with the anti-religious stuff, I guess. Yeah. The
only time I ever saw sort of en masse crying at a gig was, and I know you weren't particularly fond of when you saw them live, but I thought they were amazing, was Warning.
Oh, it was 40 Watt Sun that were terrible. I think I cry at Warning.
Oh, okay. Oh, fair enough.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Warning was, oh my god.
I cried because there were so few people at Warning's last show.
It was 40 Watt Sun, wasn't it?
No,
was it Warning? Was it Warning?
Warning played Desert Fest. It was one of the, I think they might have.
Oh, it was their last show, and no one cared.
Yeah, the electric ball was like half full.
When was that?
It was so sad,
was
man.
2019?
Maybe 18.
2018.
Yeah,
because I saw them at Damnation, which I think would have been about the same year, 2018.
Yeah.
And it was really looking forward to it. And me and my friend Chris were at the front, just waiting, and we were just really amped for it, and we were just excited to hear it. And they started playing, and before you knew it, we just turned around, and just everybody in the front 3 rows were just sobbing uncontrollably.
The first time I listened to that album, I cried.
I think I introduced you to it. I was like, there's this band called Warning, it'll make you cry. And Shem was like, no, it won't.
So fucking sad. Yeah.
And we're in the car, and he's just like, oh.
Yeah, it just gets me, man.
He sounds like a depressed Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah.
But it just works so well. Like his voice is great. Patrick, I think the singer's name is.
Yeah, Patrick Walker, I think.
I think it is Patrick Walker.
Yeah.
All these things like I've had to abandon the fortress I swore to defend, and like stuff
the Carry Me Home.
Yeah.
Oh my
sick,
god.
Yeah.
It is truly the most depressing music I've ever listened to, and it's like really good if you want to just like cry. If you're one of those people that like find it hard to cry, like I can do sometimes. Oh my god. But yeah, like at Desert Fest, like I feel like he wasn't into it. I think that was part of the problem.
I can't imagine.
Doing that every night would be horrible for your mental health.
I think it was on their second album, or it might have been an EP. They'd done an acoustic version of the song Bridges.
Oh my god.
And it's even more melancholic and depressing than I made the mistake of working out to Warning for some reason. I was in the gym, I said, you would be a really good fucking band to listen to while working out. No, it was the slowest reps I've ever done in my life. But it was...
Me and Shem used to do this thing. I can't do it, but Shem would do it. And we'd just like say random, like completely mundane sentences in the style of Warning. It's so fun. If you ever bored, try it. It's great.
But it was just... Yeah, I don't know why I decided that Warning would be a good workout band. I think I probably got bored of Hatebreed, to be honest. Not the perfect workout.
You should try Korn.
Korn. I do listen to Korn when I work out.
That's a good workout.
I can't help it. Something about having a man shout "Wake the fuck up" in my ear that just gets me out.
What's the band with Room Service at the beginning of their song?
Panzer
Christ.
Oh my god.
Room service.
That's like the best intro of any band I've ever heard.
Yeah. Damn, we should have reviewed that album.
We should have reviewed all the other albums apart from Behemoth and Gaal's Wyrd. I'm so sorry everyone who likes Behemoth. But yeah, no.
But it's funny because it's such a seminal album, isn't it? I mean, I feel like you ask a lot of like seasoned metalheads. I think like you can ask them at any time in their life what the best metal albums of all time would be, and I feel like a lot of people would put this album on there.
It reminds me of The Blackening. I think it was a similar kind of reception. You remember when The Blackening came out in like what 2004, 2006, and everyone was like, "This is the album of the decade."
The
And it was
Blackening
like,
sucked. Ashes and Empires was so much better.
I know. It's like
It's
everyone
weird.
hates that album, but I love it.
Yeah.
Like, I really like that
Is
album.
the Blackening the one that had
Something
not
of
All
Age.
the
Division?
songs were like 15 minutes long and just had like.
Oh, it's like
50
had a song called
solos.
Halo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Halo
yeah,
on it.
yeah, I think
yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah,
one.
and everyone just went mental. They won like the Defenders of the Faith tour, I think, that year, and like loads. It had the artwork was really good. It had like a kind of Baphomet
Oh.
like thing going.
No,
on.
no, the artwork, the cover of Blackening is stolen from another band.
No.
Another band used it before then.
It was like a
No.
black border with
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a.
it's just like a wood
yeah.
Is
cut.
it like it's got like Latin? I think it's got like ex libris, and there's like a Justice, but she's got like Baphomet titties or something. I don't know. Something
I just
like
want to quickly call out my friend, who shall remain nameless,
Yeah.
who tried to start the debate that the Blackening is better than Rain and Blood.
Why would you do that?
Don't know.
That's
But
really. I'm sorry, Floyd's friend.
you're still alone on that, by the way. Find no one that will agree with you on that one.
Even Morning won't write a song that sad.
I think there is a slight incident of kind of like hype overload with this album and a bit of backlash with how much sort of praise and how well it was lauded. And it's not even an album, but the only thing I can compare it to in that regard is something like Breaking Bad. Everyone loved Breaking Bad,
Oh my
right?
God,
Do you remember, it was all anybody could ever talk about was how good Breaking Bad was. And for that reason, I never watched Breaking Bad for ages, because I was just like, you know, when people say something's so good, my initial reaction always is to have the adverse
I feel like
reaction of not wanting to listen to it.
one of the problems with Breaking Bad that kind of made that so particularly annoying was people idolizing the guy that you're not supposed to idolize. It's
Oh,
like,
Heisenberg, yeah.
yeah, it's like the
yeah.
Rick and Morty effect. Like people were like glorifying some like dickhead that's like supposed to not be the person you glorify.
Yeah.
It's like supposed to call out that kind of person, and everyone's like, "Yeah, I want to be a meth dealer." It's just no, don't do that. That's not really that cool, is it? Like meth is, yeah.
Yeah, meth's not cool, kids.
If it's-
Oh, like, do I have to explain this to people? I'm sure I don't. But I feel like there should be like you know how you have sex ed at school? There should be like a day at school they just bring in a meth addict. And they just give him some meth and be like, "This is drugs, kids." And it's just a loser.
Just show pictures of toothless meth addicts. I mean, that's all you need to deter you from that drug.
Or just play Tiger King in like year 10.
Yeah. Apparently Korn were really high on meth when recording their first album.
Really?
Yeah, they all had serious methamphetamine problems.
First
Wow.
couple, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn, I did not know that.
But I think that's definitely what's happened with the Satanist in
Meth.
the sense that,
Yeah.
I think that now that we've covered meth extensively, I think that, you know, there's people that look back on it now. You know how when it becomes cool to hate something that's really well liked?
Yeah, totally.
Like, I feel like that's happened to Amon Amarth a little bit. I feel like they're a sort of band who I think is still at heart quite a good band, but I think that because they've been lauded as like, you know, one of the best extreme metal bands, a lot of people are just like, it's a bit turned off of them. And I feel like that's what's kind of going to happen with this album a little bit, because it's had such high praise and people were like, was it Loudwire labelled it the album of the decade? I think that's going to cause some people to be overly critical, perhaps.
Maybe I'm one of
the
those
album.
people. Perhaps that's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm trying to be cool. But yeah, no, I can understand that. I feel like they're a very mainstream band now, and I think good on them. Like, if you're that successful, I don't think it's a bad thing.
And I think, you know, it's good. And like I was saying, the whole thing with the stage show now, like they've really upped it, and I think it's a spectacle that I think is not done a lot in certain metal circles,
It's
especially
not
not
done
death
enough.
and black metal. Like,
I think
you know,
it should be done much more.
yeah. Because, like, you know, death metal, you go on, it's just some dudes in camel shorts and, you know, band shirts, and a lot of black metal is like corpse paint, which most of the time is quite lazy.
I feel like it's been done.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same impact as it did in the 90s, right?
No,
Yeah.
exactly.
We should do something different now. Let's try something else.
Which is why I love Portal. You ever seen what they do?
I
on
love
stage?
Portal!
Yeah.
Grandfather Clock Portal!
Yeah, that's amazing.
Daddy Grandfather Clock. It's just great. He does other stuff too. Was there one who's like a tree? And there's like the octopus. He does loads of different. It's not just the grandfather clock. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Oh, you look surprised. Yes. I love how he does.
I haven't seen the tree or the octopus.
He doesn't
I've
just
only
do
ever
the
seen
grandfather
that.
clock. He does like other things too. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, that's some top tier shit. That is some hard to get into metal, Portal.
It's not accessible.
No.
Yeah.
They were
definitely.
like half cancelled though, weren't they?
Is that just because Phil and Sam don't like them?
No. There was
What
like,
did they do?
I think they were signed to a record label with a guy who had like a swastika tattoo, and he put out like.
Oh my god.
But I don't think that like confirmed. But there's like enough of people who are kind of like, maybe these guys are racist. We don't really know.
Oh, maybe they didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think some guy died, and when he died, they were like, "Oh, it's really sad. This guy's dead." And then it turned out the guy who died, he had like a record label that put out loads of like NS stuff. Because Australia has like a bit of a problem with this. Like, this is quite a stated thing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's like a whole thing with Australian extreme heavy metal where there's like a lot of like socialistic, like racist people, and it's like a problem there. But I don't think there's no like evidence of Paul themselves having taken.
But if they're called it, do you know that's why Anselmo's like really he's always wearing
He's always
a
repping
shirt.
that.
Do you like Portal?
That's literally what he said. Like, you like Lovecraft? Do you like Portal?
Yeah, the more you mentioned it, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I met him, and those are both two now. Yeah.
Yeah. Is he a Nazi? Tune in. Yeah. So that's Behemoth. Shall we move on to?
Yeah.
So the next one's going to be Gaal's Wyrd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good album. I love
Yeah.
it because I felt like it's probably a bit of a lazy description of it, but I felt like it's kind of like elements of Gorgoroth mashed together with elements of Wardruna.
He literally has a song that I feel references Gorgoroth, like carving the voices and carving the giant by Gorgoroth, which is my favourite Gorgoroth song.
Yeah, it's a great song.
It is so good. Yeah, I like Ghaal is a really like interesting figure. Like, he has an incredible stage presence.
He's terrifying.
He's fucking scary.
Yeah, I saw him once at an enslaved gig, and I was just like, that is a towering presence of a man.
One of the first metal shows, not the first, but when I was about 16, I went to a show which was Gorgoroth. I think it was Septic Flesh, Gorgoroth, Cradle of Filth, and some other band. And Ghaal did the thing, he used to like point at random people in the crowd, and he pointed at me and I screamed. Because I was like, shit. He'll just choose like 5 people, he'll just be like, and he'll be screaming and like doing his thing. And then like a few years later when he played with Wardruna, I was introduced to him at the Royal Festival Hall, and I said absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Someone was like, oh, this is my friend Ghaal, and I was like, I just tried to get out of there as soon as I could, because he's legit exactly the same off stage. He just wears his turtleneck and his glasses and
it's the eyes as well. They're just so intense. I don't think I've ever seen that man blink.
Yeah, I wonder if he blinks. And he blinks every time he abducts someone, tortures them, and feeds them their own blood. It's apparently something he's done twice.
Oh yeah, different strokes, different folks, all that.
Indeed, yeah.
I actually wish, because I can't remember if you went. Did you go to the gig at the Coronet when it was Wardruna enslaved? They had this art show which I didn't go to because I didn't have time.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go and see some of that because I thought that would have been quite cool. But
I didn't bother because I didn't know who he was.
You didn't? Yeah, you didn't even know.
I just walked past it and I was like, why are there pictures here? I was like, this is weird.
But that's one of the things that's so good about Roadburn. The way they've integrated the art installations there is so cool.
That's awesome.
Like the year I went, it had Jacob Bannon from Converse just outside one of the stages, just painting shit randomly.
Oh, that's so cool.
He wasn't even fucking booked. He just decided to turn up because he loves the festival that much.
I love that about Roadburn.
Yeah.
Walter is so good at curating that festival.
Yeah, it's an amazing festival. It's definitely, in my opinion, like one of the best live music experiences I've ever been to, and just hopefully, fingers crossed, things can resume to a point where these sort of things can happen again.
100%. They're doing like a Redux and they're kind of doing some live stuff, I think, this year with Roadburn.
Yeah.
Not going to be the same, obviously, but they're still trying to push some kind of new music forward. Yeah.
But going back to Gaal's Wyrd, it's really good. I think it's got a great atmosphere to it. I think it's actually got some really good riffs as well.
Amazing riffs. Me and Shem have been singing them all day. They're really catchy, yeah.
And I think it's definitely probably his most varied vocal performance as well.
Definitely.
I think as a vocalist, it's always something that I enjoy listening to, is hearing. Because there's nothing worse when you hear, like, say, whether it be an album and somebody's just got the same tone of voice throughout the entire album, and there's not much dynamics going on. But on that album, like, you could have told me that there was like 9 guest vocalists, and I could easily believe you, because it's just. And there might actually be some guest vocalists on the album.
Perhaps,
I've not done the research on that, unfortunately.
Same.
But
I didn't even look at the lyrics. I didn't have time.
but like, if that is him doing the majority of the vocals on there, like it's a pretty damn good and like varied vocal performance.
He's got a really haunting voice.
Yeah.
His voice is almost as scary as he looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in like a cool way. It's like kind of you can kind of hear the torture he's inflicted on people. I have a really weird story about Ghaal. I wasn't sure if I was going to share it on the podcast.
I'll just do it. I just like it.
So I don't know if this is true, and I was told this more than 10 years ago by someone who apparently did security on Gaal's South American, North American tour of Golgoroth. And they were doing security, so they were like, in and out, there for the whole tour. This was before anyone knew that Ghaal was gay. This was before Ghaal came out. And in Mexico, where it's legal, he asked on his rider, and I don't know if this happened or not, but he asked for 2 14-year-old Mexican boy prostitutes to be delivered to his changing room with a bucket, some water, and some grapes, because he wanted to bathe them and feed them grapes. And like, knowing that Gaal's really into wine, I feel like, maybe, I don't know what happened. I don't know if this is true, because, this is something someone just told me one day, but I never forgotten it. And when it came out, like several years later, I just could never forget that story. So who knows, this is a piece of gossip, it's not true. It could be, but I don't know if it is. But there you go. There's my story about Ghaal. Yeah.
That brings a whole new meaning to the term rider.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's actually, I wish I got to see it. I've never seen Golgoroth live, so that's like a good lineup. It's a Golgoroth, Septic Flesh.
Cradle of Filth. There was another band, Moonspell.
Moonspell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're Nazis, aren't they?
Maybe it was a band with moon in the name.
Moonsorrow?
They were kind of like gothy and awful.
It'd be Moonspell. They're more gothic.
Are they Nazis? I
Are
was
they?
introduced to them once. And,
I could be wrong. There's a band with moon in their name, and it's not Goat Moon.
Goat Moon. Nazis living on the moon, the band. I don't know. Yeah, no, it was a really good show, and Golgoroth did the thing with the crucified naked people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I think I watched like some documentary. It might have been Until the Light Takes Us. I don't know if it was like before or after it came out. He did the the interview is like Satan with the pint of the glass, and they're talking about the crucified people. And it was like the first time I'd ever seen a naked person, because I was 16. So that was a really interesting show. Yeah.
First time I ever saw naked people on stage. I say first time, like it's a regular occurrence. But when I was younger, there used to be in London Bridge an underground rave called the Warp.
Nice.
And it was apparently kids were allowed to come. My mum actually took us to the rave. I think it was, well, I was maybe 13, 14 at the time. Obviously, the younger ones didn't come, siblings, but. And they had like a stage performance, and it was wasn't so much a stage performance as it was just 2 people having sex on stage.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
What, how old are you when this happened?
13.
Holy fuck.
Oh.
Yeah, it was pretty avant-garde and open and out there. It was a cool thing. It was like a 24-hour rave. And they had like a child-friendly bit that was cool for the kids.
Is that where they did the performance?
No. I think Ghaal was headlining that.
I just want to add a correction. Moonspell are good, apparently.
Okay.
Moonsorrow.
Yeah, they were just like friendly
Moonsorrow.
Spanish people. I think they were
They're
Spanish.
Portuguese.
Portuguese.
Yeah, they're
sorry,
Portuguese,
so
yeah.
sorry.
They're like
they were nice. Yeah.
they're like one of actually they're probably the most famous Portuguese bands. There's another really good black metal Portuguese band, and if you ever checked them out, they're called GaestiR. If I'm pronouncing that correctly,
I've not heard of them.
Gaerea. They're kind of like doing the whole post-black metal, atmospheric black metal sort of thing at the moment, but they're kind of getting a lot of traction. They're doing really well.
Huh.
So if you want a good Portuguese black metal band to check out,
Yeah.
that's my recommendation. But getting back to Ghahl's Wyrd, Ghosts Invited. No, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I like it. I like how it has similar lyrical stylizations that the Wardruna albums had.
Yeah,
I don't know the
love this
significance of the big R, because I noticed that
Oh,
Wardruna do that as well.
really?
It has got GastiR, so
Yeah.
it's.
I think it's a way of pronouncing it, right?
Oh, okay.
Maybe we're just not pronouncing. I'm so sorry if we're not pronouncing it right. GastiR. Yeah, it's beautiful. Like, I really love that album. Like, the weird political, possibly paedophilia stuff aside, like, wow. If it's not true, then it's amazing and I love it and it's like musically incredible. You know, the same deal. Like, I really like the music and I think it's an amazing album. And it's like there should be more bands doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not openly fascist, which is a relief. That I know of anyway. I haven't read the lyrics.
I just read a lot of the lyrics and they seem very safe. It's all about like ravens and.
Oh, thank goodness!
There's nothing. It's
Thank
like
God.
it's all just very like
Yeah.
open to interpretation. There's nothing like.
It's not like
the
Winter
people of
lyrics.
Yeshua or anything like that.
Eradicate. Yeah.
I think one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is that I think it's really cool that Ghaal is like openly gay.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Like I think it's really like in a scene of a lot of like the early black metal people were
fucking
like
there was someone was murdered because they were gay.
yeah,
like, yeah.
fucking what's his name?
Faust
Emperor.
and
Faust,
yeah.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so. I'm not
Yeah.
really a black metal
Yeah.
person, so I don't know these things.
Like Gaal's not like first wave black metal, is he? He's probably more like second.
Golgoroth would be because first wave are kind of like your Bathories and your Celtic
right,
Frosts.
they're more like a little
Like
bit
kind of
newer.
pre-black metal as we know it now, but yeah, I'd say Golgoroth would definitely be second wave, with like your Satyricons and your Immortals.
Yeah.
I will say Immortal were great. 'Cause
I love Immortal.
yeah, you're never gonna get any problems with a Bath. Only
I feel
him
like-
falling down a hill.
He's just too drunk to care about being racist. I don't know. Yeah, I love that. That falling down the hill was like the most exciting thing to happen in 2018, 2019.
It was a while back.
It was
Yeah.
before the end times
Absolutely.
occurred, but that was like the biggest news of the year for metalheads.
Yeah.
That video.
That
is
video film
brilliant.
of Matt Pike.
Oh yeah!
And
I love the interview where it's like, my name is Abba.
It's just a man smoking a massive joint saying.
It's so funny.
He rocks.
Yeah, that's great.
There's one where he's been interviewed by, I think the guy's name is Sam Dunn from
Oh, I love that
Banger
guy.
TV.
Headbanger's Journey, that guy.
Yeah.
It's Headbanger TV. Yeah.
And the poor dude's just trying to interview him, and he's just totally like speeded out or something, and he's just like on a full stream of consciousness, and he just cannot be stopped. Like he's just fucking having a conversation with himself, and just cracking his own jokes, and it's just amazing.
One of my favourite ever metal interviews is when that Sam Dunn guy, he interviews Necro Butcher at Wacken.
Oh, someone gets really pissed off.
Yeah, Necro Butcher's like, who said that? Fuck those people! Fuck you! And he's just yelling, and his bandmates just sitting there just like... and at the end of the interview, he's just like, what more can you say?
You know, Necro Butcher lost his shit when I saw him live at Damnation just
Really?
this year.
He
Well,
seems
actually,
a bit precious.
I keep saying this year just gone, not forgetting that 2020 happened.
Didn't exist
Yeah.
yet.
Sorry, I mean 2019. There was Mayhem were playing, and there was some mad sound issues, which I think one of the people from Damnation explained it was because they insisted they had their own sound deck and their own soundboard and didn't want to use the in-house one,
Oh dear.
which is what caused a lot of sound issues. But yeah, he was on stage and the sound was just fucking cutting out and all over the place. And he just picked up this war bowl and just dashed it on the ground, and he was very clearly livid. I remember at the time, because it wasn't too long after, because remember that it was that whole thing, he came out and said that he too was on his way to kill Euronymous. And we were just cracking jokes like, oh, imagine Euronymous after this performance, and I too was on my way to kill the sound guy. But it ended up actually being quite a good set towards the end. Turns out the only tracks we missed were the newer tracks, and I hadn't listened to that album, and it came back in time for Freezing Moon, which is like the Wonderwall of black metal.
I think it is. I saw them play at Hellfest, I think 2012, 2011, something like that. And they played at midnight, and there was a full moon.
Oh, that's cool.
It was really cool, but it wasn't very good.
Was that when they were touring the mysterious Dom Satanist
I
album?
think so, yeah. All I remember is I was sitting there, I hadn't slept in a while, and there was just about 50 people urinating behind the tent. Like, so many people urinate at Hellfest specifically. Like, there's a lot of public urination at festivals, but Hellfest in particular, there is some kind of like zeitgeist, some kind of like spirit of the festival. People just piss everywhere. I've seen people pissing next to an empty urinal, away from the urinal. It's incredible. I don't understand. But yeah, Mayhem, everyone peed. Like everyone was peeing. It was crazy.
Reminds me of a joke Frankie Boyle once told.
Yeah.
He said the most Scottish thing he's ever seen is a Scottish guy leaning up against the door while taking the piss. And then when he finishes, he takes out his keys and then goes in. I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty Scottish.
That is brilliant. That pretty accurately sums up a lot of festivals. Yeah. Oh.
But it's going back to Gaal's Wyrd, GastiR Uninvited. Invited, sorry.
We keep saying uninvited.
Yeah. It's one of the things I want to say was, which I quite like, and I feel like Wardruna do this quite well as well, is using the vocals as almost like another percussive sort of instrument.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like too many times you listen to metal and it's just like, oh fuck, we've written this great music, we need some vocals to put it over the top.
Just splash them over it, yeah.
Whereas like this feels like quite integrated and blended into the album, which I think is really cool. And I think, you know, it's because I feel like Wardruna is a bit too ambient and, you know,
it's a lot
not
softer.
metal enough for a lot of people in the scene. Whereas Gorgoroth might be a bit too second wave for a lot of people. So I think where this album was good is it really does kind of meet in the middle.
Yeah.
Kind of present something and a perfect amalgamation of kind of both sides of that fence.
It's really awesome. Like, it's definitely the kind of metal that I like listening to. Like, it just sits so beautifully. It's like, there's groove, there's rhythm, there's not too many, like, there's no super, like, I don't mind drawn out stuff, but it's like so succinct, it's concise, it's efficient, but at the same time you feel like you're already going through like some kind of like atmospheric experience with it.
Yeah.
And then, like, as you say, like the vocals are like very percussive, like the way he's enunciating the words, like he really cares about every word that he says. It's all so well curated, and he really, like, I love the emphasis on language in Wardruna. I feel like he's doing the same thing. Yeah.
Because they're all the language in Wardruna is all like Old Norse, right?
Yeah, the first 3 albums, all of them are about runes, and it's like exploring the meanings of each rune and stuff. And like I think they continue like this exploration of like Norse culture and mythology and stuff, which I really love. Yeah.
Yeah. That's super cool.
It's super cool. Yeah. So that's Gaal's Wyrd. What would you rate Gaal's Wyrd?
Yeah. Oh. See, what I like about it is it's got a lot of variety as well, which I like in an album.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Depends on my mood. Sometimes I like something that's got a consistent tone and mood through it. Like, when you know, if you listen to a Warden album, you'll be, you'll be crying in the bathroom for like 35 minutes.
There's no like jaunty song. Yeah.
Right, there's no breakdowns or blast beat sections in that album.
Yeah.
But I think what I like is there's a lot of variety. I think that's quite good, because one of the things I will say about, say, Wardruna, for example, is it could be a bit of a slog to
you
get
can
through
stop
sometimes.
listening after a while. Yeah.
Whereas this album's quite dynamic, and I feel like it changes things up enough to keep me interested throughout. And it's not overly long either. Like a lot of Wardruna albums tend to be like in excess of an hour. Whereas, like, and even on the flip side, like a lot of Gorgoroth albums tend to be, and this is one of the issues I have with Marduk as a band, it's just constant blasting a lot of the time, and it's just, that could just be a bit impenetrable at times.
Yeah, I agree.
And there's some tracks on here, like, is it Sleeping
Giants?
No.
No sleeping.
No.
I know it's not Sleeping Giants. Sorry, I can't be more helpful. I was like, I know it's not that, but sorry.
It is Ghosts Invited, the title track.
Oh.
Like, that's quite poppy, I feel. And there's some melodies in there, like some vocal melodies that I feel like are quite accessible. So I think my overall rating would be, I would give it personally about 7.
Oh.
I think this is a 7. I think maybe for me it's a 7.5 actually.
Oh.
Yeah, but you know what? I like Wardruna a lot as well, and I think Wardruna are better overall, because this is only one album. There's nothing else. But personally, I like this more. So I don't know, what that means. I don't know if it's just nonsense or what. But yeah, I think the first 3 Wardruna albums are like my favourite. Some of my favourite albums in, I guess it's not even metal, but I consider it metal. And they play metal festivals, and their shows are incredible.
They are great.
They are so good. If you ever get the chance to catch a Wardruna show, go, because they get like ancient instruments out. They have like an orchestra of like old music. I think they're really exploring like the history and culture in a way that's not like fascist, which is what everyone else seems to be doing. So like, I think that's really important. I think that's why I feel that way. I think that more people should do it like that. And like, not just from that part of the world. So yeah, I like that, and I think Ghaal is doing his own thing, and I feel like it's less culturally important, but I think it's still beautiful, and I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just so good when you hear artists that draw on their own heritage and their own influences from where they come from in the world.
When they're doing
just
it in
something
the...
so genuine.
Yeah,
when they're doing it in a way that... But in the way, like, say, Wardruna do it, like, say, for example, like, I feel like this turned into a massive flaming session, but when I saw Highland, there was quite a lot of backing track.
Oh, okay,
when they were playing live Roban. But there might not have been backing track, but I thought it sounded like there was a lot of backing track. But it's compared to when Wardruna was doing it, like, every sound on that stage was produced from the instruments, and they're often instruments that are, you know, like, ancient instruments from, like, Norse history.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder if Ghaal will do that with Gaal's Wyrd. I wonder if he'll try and bring stuff like that in.
It's interesting. He, I'm trying to think if he played Damnation in 2019.
I thought they did play shows, didn't they?
I think he was playing shows.
Yeah.
I think he might have.
He was going to play Hellfest. Oh, that was on the lineup that we were going to go to.
Was he?
God damn it. I was so excited
such
about
a good
that
lineup.
I mean,
Oh,
that
it
was
was
literally
disgustingly
one of the bands
good.
we were going to watch.
Yeah, I really hope we actually eventually get to Hellfest, even if Brexit tries to slow us down.
Either way, when he does play live, like, I would definitely jump at the chance to watch
Same.
him perform this material live.
Maybe we can see if we can get him on.
And you know, he actually wanted to call the band or this project Wyrd, or Wyrd, as however it's pronounced. But there's another band of that name, so you had to call it Gaal's Wyrd. So I think he was quite annoyed at the fact that because it's always going to come across like a solo project
It is, isn't it?
if his name's involved. But he's actually there's an interview I think done when Roadburn at 1 year. I think he was saying that that it's not actually a solo project of him, it's an actual band, but that was just because of the fact that there was already a Wyrd, he had to just go for Gaal's Wyrd instead.
I'd be really annoyed if I was in a band and one of the members just named it after themselves.
Especially if your name was like Dave.
Dave's band.
Yeah.
Dave's Wyrd.
Dave's Wyrd.
Doesn't really translate.
Jeff's Wyrd.
That's Carcass, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's great.
Jeff Walker presents Carcass.
I think Gaal's Wyrd sounds a bit like a missing Enslaved album.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because there's definitely some Enslaved-esque moments on there.
It feels a bit like if Enslaved wrote an album and like the vocals were the most important thing. There's something about I don't know if it's like the scales and stuff they use. I don't know, but yeah, it evoked like. The first time I listened to Retir by Enslaved, like I was just taken on a freaking journey. You know, like I listened to that album, and then when it ends, I like feel like I'm waking up from a dream, right? And it's like that album takes me places, and Gaal's Wyrd does the same thing. Like I can't distinguish between the songs; it's a whole journey, and I just feel like I'm in some weird interdimensional labyrinth where I can kind of see strange things around me I don't quite understand, and you know. Just other bands don't always do that for me.
I feel like the drumming is a big important part of it. I feel like it's the same in the Satanist.
Yes, the spear in that sort, the drum beat in this, that's amazing.
The drumming is like really advanced. They don't just stay on a beat. Like it's constantly changing. They're constantly like, and it's just interacting with the other instruments, which I think some bands fall down. And they like obviously don't do the amateur thing of just staying in 4/4 all the time.
Yeah.
Which is like the worst.
It helps that the drums are quite well mixed because I think too many times when you can hear the drums, it always overpowers a lot of the music and just miss so much of the nuances that you wouldn't have caught otherwise.
Yeah, it's such a difficult thing to do, to interweave instruments in that way, because like you can't write them all at the same time unless you're like Mozart or some shit. Maybe these people do, but like most people start with like 1 or 2 and then add everything else. And then sometimes you start tweaking it and varying it, but it feels so interwoven and intertwined. Like it's all like woven in together so deeply you can't necessarily tell what it started with. I can't anyway. I'm sure some people could.
Yeah, I agree. I think Shem brings up a good point about kind of listening to it as a whole album, and I felt like that's people that didn't grow up with, say, either CDs, tapes, or vinyls. I feel like they don't appreciate the fact that a lot of albums are constructed to be listened to all the way through. Yeah. And just the sort of short attention span age of music consumption we live in now is just... Like, I feel like there's a lot of stuff that doesn't get appreciated because you just go onto Spotify, you'll listen to maybe the first 5 tracks, which are often not even from the same albums, and they're all out of sync and stuff. And I feel like it's just not a good representation of what an artist is about. Like, I'm definitely of the belief that if you want to really get a good grip on what an artist is trying to portray. You just got to listen to the album all the way through.
Yeah, I agree. I like something. This is gonna probably sound pretentious, but something I don't enjoy. I don't necessarily always look out for it, but something I like looking at in an album is how tracks are joined together. Like, I really like seeing if people actually join them, how they join them, like where they cut a song into the next one, because sometimes something will come on shuffle and you can tell like there's part of the previous song on the track.
Yeah.
And, like, I find stuff like that interesting. Like,
Yeah.
it's, and some people do it really well, some people like just do it, whatever, but like I like hearing stuff like that, and I feel like these albums that we all like have like really smooth transitions between songs that are like really well considered.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, because that's happened when I've shuffled a song and it's just like you can hear like a droned out riff from like a previous song.
You hear like an echo. Yeah.
So what would you rank it, Shem?
8.5. It rocks.
Shem's word. Alright, so let's move on to Visitations from Enceladus by Cryptic Shift. Did I get it all right? Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Sick. I didn't say spectral shift, voice, Hector, etc.
Visitations from Enchilada.
It's a moon, isn't it?
It's one of Saturn's moons.
Saturn's moons, yeah.
It's 500 kilometers across.
Yeah.
It is named after one of the Titans, of which Saturn's original namesake, Cronus, was the head of.
Yes.
And it is a really cool moon because it's got volcanoes at both poles, and the volcanoes.
Oh, is that this moon?
It's the frozen ocean moon, and the volcanoes spew sodium chloride crystals and ice into space, and there's like pictures from Voyager 2.
Yeah.
I think maybe Cassini, because Voyager 1 discovered it.
Voyager 1's is Voyager 1 past Pluto now?
I think that's the one from like the 70s or something.
Yeah.
It's a really old one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Voyager 1's just gone.
Yeah.
It's like in deep space now. I think it's deep space. I'm not an astronomer. But yeah, so Enceladus is a really cool moon. It's an interesting moon. And like, I really like it. I like how they named it, and the lyrics are sick. Cryptic Shift, your lyrics are sick. Thank you so much for writing sick lyrics.
I think
really good.
It's something I think's happened in like, it's funny because this was a thing I feel like in the early 90s, the whole cosmic death metal thing. I feel like it's had a bit of a resurgence with bands like Blood Incantation,
Definitely.
kind of like Artificial Brain and things. I think it's such a cool...
Fucking love it.
Yeah, it's such a good band. It's such a good marriage of lyrics and music. I think the whole cosmic...
Space is sick.
And
it's
fucking
all my lyrics
brutal.
are about space, so like I'm like one of the people, but yeah, it's brutal as fuck.
Yeah,
it's such a good album.
Even when you think about what happens to the human body if it was in space, like your eyes just boil.
You kind of like turn inside out, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, someone was telling me if you go into a black hole foot first, something happens called spaghettification. So you stretch out infinitely, but like you're okay, but then your legs are just like whoop, for like ever. Literally forever. You're just being strung out until you're like a single molecule long, and then just sucked in.
Monocle.
See,
A single molecule.
I just thought Interstellar had it right. Have you seen Interstellar?
Oh, it's a good film. Yeah.
When you go into a black hole, you transport into a fourth dimensional bookcase.
Well,
and
have you not seen
Interstellar?
But it's supposed to be a continuation of 2001: A Space Odyssey, right? Which is one of my favourite fucking films.
That's a continuation.
I think it's supposed to be like related.
Yeah, like
it's like supposed
spiritually.
to be.
Yeah.
Spiritually.
Yeah, isn't that what people say? It's like a spiritual successor.
A spiritual successor.
No,
Yeah.
in terms of the narrative, there was supposed to be some connection to it.
Oh,
I can't
there's
remember.
literally a connection.
Am I imagining this?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I feel maybe you can Google it. Maybe you can be like that guy on Joe Rogan that Joe Rogan's
Chef,
just
pull
like,
that shit up.
pull that shit up. Yeah.
Except I've got an iPhone that's on 1% with a broken screen.
Hey, you can still, but that's not an excuse. I've seen your drawings. You can draw amazingly on that fucking phone.
He's really good at drawing on his phone. Yeah. So like, have you seen 2001: A Space Odyssey?
I haven't.
So there's a scene. Oh, it's a spoiler.
Is that the one with the robot Hal?
Yeah.
Hal.
Will I dream?
Just say it to me. I don't care. I've spent 30 odd years not watching it.
Okay,
I can handle a spoiler.
It is one of the best films ever made. To be fair, I thoroughly recommend it if you're ever bored.
Stanley Kubrick?
I believe it's Kubrick.
I
Yeah.
can't let you do that, Dave. Is it Dave?
It's Hal.
No, the machine's called Hal. What does he say? I can't let you do
Oh,
that.
it is Dave. Yeah, it is Dave. Yeah, it is Dave. Yeah.
I've actually heard about that.
It's so fucking creepy.
Oh, is that what that's from? Oh,
Yeah.
I need to watch it.
It's a really good. The first half hour has no dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's just like H-Men like do. It's so epic, and there's these monoliths. But at the end of the film, there's a scene where the dude, I think it's at Saturn, actually. I think it's at Saturn. There's like a portal. There's like a big monolith, and the dude goes through it. And like the way they represent it on the screen is so well done, because you don't see it. You only see him seeing it.
Yeah.
And you kind of see stuff reflected in the guy's helmet.
Yeah.
So you see these like weird lights, and you see his face completely change. And he says this line. He just goes, "My God, it's full of stars," and that's all you know.
Yeah, that's sick.
It gives you goosebumps.
Yeah, that's
like,
quite cool.
It's so good.
But then there's the embryo, right?
The embryo, is that what happened? I can't remember.
There's
I
an
haven't seen it
embryo
in
floating in
years.
space, yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm pretty sure. That's
It's
why,
so good.
I don't think I was high last time I watched it.
I've never watched it high. But
Hi, in Amsterdam, of course.
You know?
in Amsterdam, in a legal environment.
The cafe. Watching Space Odyssey on your phone.
Also, the machine is called Ghaal because its name is, all the letters of its name are one letter removed from IBM.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, shit.
And
Okay.
then basically, like a bit of it, like the whole thing is just like the fear of like machinery becoming more and more prevalent in our lives.
Skynet.
And
Yeah.
then turning on us, kind of, that's a whole big thing. And actually, I believe in part of the film, they actually, on one of the characters' faces, they literally like, they show like a torch and it's like the IBM logo, and it's not immediately obvious. And
Oh, no way.
But like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like super like,
They do explore the
computers
link.
are bad.
They explore the link between like capitalism and like machinery and humanity, and what that means, and like what that will mean, like the foreign, these like monoliths, and like they're implied as being like a force of evolution within mankind. You're like, are they there because because Ghaal is evolving? I haven't seen it in years, so I could just be full of shit. But it's fascinating, and like the computer's just like it's obsessed with dreaming. It's like, am I going to dream? What will it be like when I'm turned off? Like this computer is aware that there's like some kind of mechanic death that awaits itself when it's being like dismantled.
Silicone heaven.
Yeah, and it's trying to defend itself, which is something like a thing that is alive would do.
Right.
So like you're exploring like all these different like ethical.
It sounds a bit like what Prometheus tried to do, but not shit.
Yeah, it's really not shit at all. And Prometheus like looked cool but was shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you know about the conspiracy theory and
Which one?
about Kubrick and the moon landing.
Well, they think he filmed it.
Yeah.
There's loads of bits about
They felt like
that.
they watched Space Odyssey and was just like, let's get this guy to film the moon landing. And
Yeah, he'd do a good job.
Yeah.
I feel like he would have done it better if he'd done it.
Yeah, that's the thing. If the moon landing was fake, surely it'd look a bit
It would
more.
look great.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
would look good and not as shit as it actually
If
did.
it was Kubrick, it would be so sick.
Yeah.
I want Kubrick to film the moon landings this time. Like, can he just do a moon landings film? That'd be great. Yeah. Oh.
You know Prometheus, did you see it's such a shame it ended up the way it did, because the navigators in the original scripts, I believe,
So
you know, like,
the big
take
hedge engineer motherfuckers.
so like obviously they're based off the creature from the first Alien that's like in the chair.
Space jockey.
Yeah, the space jockey
Yeah.
is supposed to be a navigator, right? And those things are supposed to be just like how they look. They're not supposed to be suits. But in one of the original scripts for Prometheus, basically, they were genderless. They only had one gender.
Okay.
And they had some form of mind control. And they, basically, in one of the early scripts for Prometheus, they tried to make two of the male members of the crew have sex to procreate. And they can't understand why they can't get them to procreate, because they don't understand, because they only have one gender. Yeah.
Oh.
That would have
Which
been
was like
really,
a super interesting
really
idea.
interesting.
Yeah.
Like, it's very, honestly, like, gay sex on film is so rare. It's so fucking rare. We were watching American Gods, and there's like a really, like, there's a very sexual scene between two not like conventionally hot men, and it's like it wasn't shocking, but we were like, that's never happened before. We've never seen anything like that.
It's cool how
and
like,
it's like they've done it
passionate
really
real
well.
is, yeah.
Yeah, and at the end, like one of them is like a djinn, and he climaxes, and like the dude fills with fire.
It's
really
super trippy, man. It's great.
It's legit. 10 out of 10 would
10
recommend.
out of 10, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that dude needs to book a ticket to the STD clinic. Pretty sharp.
But yeah, anyway, Cryptic Shift.
Cryptic Shift. Moving on from gay sex to Cryptic Shift. Yeah, Cryptic Shift is so cool, man. Like, I really love that album. I had never listened to it. Shem recommended it. I think you'd listened to it before as well.
I'd listened to the EP before, not the new album.
Yeah, it was... for me, like, because I didn't know what to expect, I heard loads of jazz influences. There's like jazz style riffs. The drums at times have like hardcore, and like I wrote down, it sounds like a planet collapsing, like to freeform jazz. It's just so like, it's kind of chaotic at first, but then you start hearing, like you kind of hear this like frantic energy, but it's like very controlled at the same time, and it sounds chaotic, but it is like someone just like touching loads of like bleepy things in a cockpit. And like if you read the lyrics, like the lyrics for the first song is like 26 minutes long.
Yeah.
And it's called
Moonbelt Immolator.
Moonbelt Immolator, which is sick. And it's like the way it's written is kind of stream of consciousness. It reminds me a little bit of Alcest Neuros, like the way the lyrics are written. I wonder if like they're fans of Sleep. I mean, who isn't? But yeah, so it's like that. It's very similar to like some like American poetry that is very wanky and most people wouldn't have read. But I really like it, and I like, it reminds me of like hard science fiction, and it's like very much like factual, and they're putting in like terms that are like kind of scientific, but then they're kind of mixing them with like, you know, there are aliens here, and then like in their later songs they start referring to words which I think are Akkadian. So I think they're referring to like 10th planet stuff. And like the whole Nibiru theory and like, you know, Ike, etc. So I don't know.
What Nibiru's the hidden planet? Is that planet X?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned jazz, because the first band that it kind of came into my mind while the album was Atheist. I think if you ever listened to Atheist.
I love Atheist.
But they're so jazzy, like Atheist. And no, they were doing that shit in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And it just never kicked off. People weren't into it.
I don't know why they're not
for
bigger.
some reason.
They're so good.
But like Unquestionable Presence is like such a sick album by Atheist. But
well, you know, Atheist were recording that album in the same studio. They recorded that first, and then Def were in the same studio, and then Death Throat Human pretty much directly after they recorded in the same studio, and Cynic as well were in the same studio before they were in Death and wrote Human with Chuck Schuldiner.
That's crazy.
They were all in the same studio, and they witnessed Atheist recording.
Yeah, that's mental.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just, God, the metal. It's funny how death metal peaked as soon as it started.
So true.
But it's, but no, I think that's, like, I heard a bit of Atheist, like, it's funny because obviously they're listed as like a Cryptic Shift, listed as like a technical sort of thrash band. I didn't really get the thrash elements in this album, but like the first EP, or one of the first EPs they released, which is called, it was Beyond the Celestial Realms.
Nice.
That's only like 23 minutes, but that proper goes for the jugular, and you can really hear the thrash elements in that.
Sick.
So it's a bit more similar to like a Vector kind of like sci-fi thrash attack. Whereas what I loved about this album is it's obviously a lot more atmospheric, and there's a lot more dissonant riffs, and it's more kind of discordant. But like you said, like it's there's elements of that freeform jazzy thing, but it's woven in a web that's still quite tight.
Definitely.
And it's got enough structure that keeps it all together. Because that shit can easily become unlistenable, I think, if it's too like loose.
Yeah.
But like, and you know, what a fuck. I mean, hats off to them for opening the album with a 26-minute.
Yeah, and the
track.
intro is like so long as well.
Yeah.
I was like really waiting for it to kick off, and when it did, I was like, I was glad the intro was there to like warm me up to like that fucking chaos that ensued afterwards.
But I was really, really impressed. There's something I love about really schizophrenic death metal. Just the fact that you've got like 25 million riffs in one song, and yet they can still make it sound like a good song.
Yeah, and there's like a narrative as well, and it's reflected in the music. There's like a bit towards the end, and it sounds a bit like Holst's Planets, like 20 minutes into the first song. And I was listening to it, I was like, oh my god, that's Holst! And like he literally has a suite for Saturn, you know? And like, I can't remember if it was like the Mars theme or the Saturn theme, but I was like, and like even the way the intervals in the guitars and the tone of the guitars, it sounded like the brass in the orchestral theme for that particular movement. I was really impressed by that. Like I like that they were like, you know, hinting at, like, I just love space shit, and I love celestial shit. I love how geeky these guys are being about this stuff. And
it's funny because like I feel like there's going to be a lot of comparisons made to, say, Blood Incantation, for example, but I actually think it's very different. I think it's got links to Blood Incantation in the sense that they're both sort of space themed.
Yeah.
But I feel like Blood Incantation is very classic, almost Morbid Angel style death metal, and they've got one track that's like super long on the Blood Incantation album as well. But this is just more in the vein of like
Gorguts.
Yeah, there's some riffs here that really remind me of like Obscura era Gorguts, like super janky and just absolutely just out there. And that's what I loved. That's one of the things that got me into death metal in the first place. Just how out there it sounded and how different it was from the rest of the metal scene. And I felt like it's weird because death metal kind of like, I mean, it's fragmented itself because you've got technical death metal, which is just pure guitar wankery that's probably got more in common with Yngwie Malmsteen than it does like the early bands like Atheist and Cynic. But obviously things have splintered off, but I'm loving this like kind of new revival of like cosmic death metal in all its forms, whether it be like the more like lumbering Morbid Angel style or like this really like sort of spazzy, super technical, super like hyper sci-fi blackened death thrash. You can update the Metal Archives genre with that if you want.
I don't go near Metal Archives. I'm not like you don't have luck with it. I'm not a member. I just go on it to like work out if I'm wrong about something basically. Yeah, it's such a, what have I written? It's such a good album, man. Like, I really recommend this album. I don't know what I'd rate it. It's really difficult to rate it alongside, like, classics, like The Satanist. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a strange one, because I feel like, and even the concept of ratings, like, each rating's going to have a different context.
Yeah, exactly.
And, like, it's hard to compare ratings, because, like, when you listen to a new album for the first time, you're going to have a certain fervour in like for that album.
Definitely.
Because it's something that's super fresh. You're like, oh my god, I really dig that. Whereas like The Satanist is something I've listened to about 30 odd times or however many times. And it's something that's embedded into my brain now.
Yeah.
But it's hard to rate something that's only been out for a few months because you don't know the lasting appeal it's going to have until that time has elapsed. Mm-hmm. But like I was super impressed with it. Like I loved it. I think it's much better than the EP. Yeah. So as much as I really liked the EP, I felt like that was more of a straightforward kind of like going for the jugular assault. Whereas like this was more well thought out. It was more dynamic, and it had like even like the intro to Moonbeam.
Moonbeam. Moonbeam Cuddler. Moonbelt Immolator.
Moonbelt Immolator.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like what I was saying earlier, when you spend time in quarantine and lockdown, I've just forgotten how to speak English. but like Moonbelt Immolator was just such a bold way to open an album, and I think they actually pulled it off really well.
Yeah,
it was
definitely.
like, it's kind of a statement, isn't it? It's just like, well, fuck you, here's a 26-minute track
As
to open the album.
Yeah.
That's got about 10 tracks in it already, just merged into one cohesive track.
You know what? There was a period, you know, when like Doom was really huge for a couple of years, and it was like, everyone was just talking about Doom. I feel like as that died down, there was definitely a whole wave of bands that were like, oh, Dope Smoker's really cool. We're gonna do a long song. We're gonna do like a 40-minute song, an hour-long song, and this doesn't fall into that category for me. It's like, I think that's a true stand because. For me now, when I see a super long song, I'm a bit kind of like wary. I'm like, oh, is this just like a gimmicky thing now because so many people fail at that? But these guys definitely don't fall into that trap.
Nah, it's almost like Moonbelt Immolator is the album. The other tracks are the bonus tracks. But it's like, but it still blends together really well. I think one of the things that I think is quite impressive about the album as well is the fact that. Because I think normally a lot of bands would save the really long song as the last track.
Definitely, yeah.
Whereas by putting that first and then the tracks lesser in length afterwards, I think it would be very easy for those tracks to be quite overshadowed.
Definitely,
by the initial track. But they've done a good job of creating even the short tracks, making them still as interesting as the other track in their own kind of entities.
If I remember correctly, the two tracks following are 7.5 minutes, and then the last track is 5.5 minutes.
Yeah.
So like they taper it off like significantly at the end. I wonder if that was like just how it ended up, or like if they did it on purpose. Yeah.
And just got some really, and there's actually some real groove in the album as well. Like there's some really groovy, proper death metal and thrashy riffs as well, which I just love. I just love the whole, just the moshy sort of riffs.
Yeah.
There was a really interesting thing, I don't know if you guys felt the same way, so it'd be interesting to see what you think about this, but when I was listening to it, there's almost like, I don't know how to describe it, because it sounds almost happy in parts, but they're not using major keys. It's not like Hey Through a Flame, or like that new Afterbirth record does it as well. They use like major scale stuff, and it's amazing and different, but it's not like that. There's something really clever and unique about the I'm not quite sure what compositional tool they use, but I definitely felt like parts of it were happy and not in a corny kind of way either. It felt like...
I feel like it was the rhythm and the speed. I feel like there's bits of Moonbelt Emulator where like the bass and the drums are like jumping.
Oh, the bass tone is great as well.
Yeah, they're really quickly jumping, and then everything else is happening around it, like spinning around it, and that's like the center. And it's like this kind of like frantic, like I just imagine, it sounds stupid, I imagine like a flea jumping up or something. And the bass is like duh, and the drums are like you know, it's like this energy.
They're a 4-piece, aren't they? So it must be 2 guitars. Yeah.
They're from Leeds.
They're from Leeds, yeah.
Yeah.
They've been banned since they were in secondary school, I think.
Cryptic Shift, if you're watching, you're invited.
Yeah,
come.
4.
Come, we'll do your cards.
You said a lot about the bass, like a flea. Do you think that's why Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers
Oh my God.
chose that name?
You know that ukulele is the Hawaiian word for flea, jumping flea, because that's how it sounds. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's, I think, the bass was amazing. Like, even in the intro to the first track, I think it's just the bass lines in that were just ridiculous and just jumping about all over the place.
Yeah, no, sorry, I just remembered after you said that they use a vocoder on the vocals a bunch. I really like that. I think that was really cool.
Yeah, it's cool when it's done. And it makes sense in given the context of the lyrical inspiration and stuff, like to have that sort of.
Yeah, definitely.
Because like GastiR done that on one of their albums, The Way of All Flesh. They've got kind of like slightly vocoded vocals, and it's kind of jarred people a bit. But like this, it makes complete sense.
Just don't like GastiR. I've tried so many times, man.
Really? I can't lie.
You know what? I was at like a barbecue once or something like that, and someone played like a new GastiR album all the way through, and I was like, this is okay. But then they played like I Hate God afterwards, and I was like, the comparison between the two, I was like, oh, GastiR are garbage. Like, it's so weird. Like, I don't know what it is, but I just can't get into them.
I think they're a good band. I think
they're good.
Well. I'm really
they're
glad
amazing
that,
musicians.
I'm glad
they're
they're just
people.
another band from an English-speaking country. That like, it's really nice that there are like countries that aren't like the UK and America that have like really massive metal bands, and it's just really nice like that they've done really well. And I'm not a huge GastiR fan myself, but I do think that like they're legit musicians and stuff. But yeah, I can see why you would feel that way. That's like we kind of all of us have like we started listening to like death metal and shit. Like really heavy shit when we started listening to metal, so like we're probably not gonna enjoy like the softer stuff as much, like in that respect. I don't know.
But they're super important. They're really good.
Oh, definitely.
Gateway band for people to get into heavier stuff. They're really good.
They're a gateway band, I'd say. Yeah.
100% a gateway band in the same way a band like Slipknot is, because GastiR do have a lot of commercial appeal.
Definitely.
Which is why like there's that YouTube channel of reactors. These 2 dudes from Las Vegas, they're called Lost in Vegas, and they just like they're like predominantly like hip hop and rap and soul fans, and they've just been losing their shit every time they hear GastiR.
That's
so I think they're really good at portraying groove in a way that's accessible for anybody to listen to it.
Definitely, yeah. I think a lot of gateway bands get so much shit for just being a gateway band. I think if you're a gateway band, you're succeeding. Like, that's really good. If someone who doesn't like metal can listen to you and be like, I'm gonna listen to metal now. If you can like get someone who's never cared about a genre to just suddenly care about it and like want to explore it, I think that's really good. You know, I don't think it matters.
And it's good for the scene. Like it's important to have those bands, because I'm not being funny. Like I listened to Morbid Angel before I listened to GastiR. So the first time I heard GastiR, I was like, oh my god, that's Where the Slime Lives. By,
yes, that's my problem with them.
Yeah, and I was like,
every song is just Where the Slime Lives. Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely are heavily influenced by that song. But do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people that will be listening to GastiR that will then listen to Morbid Angel. And I'm not being funny. If you listen to Morbid Angel before you do GastiR without any exposure to metal, then you're going to be completely turned off.
I mean, the only time I've ever listened to Morbid Angel was the worst Morbid Angel song.
Oh, we were going to review this album as well. Don't we have to review it at some point? That's a 3-hour podcast in itself. Just talking about
what the fuck?
I love Evil Dave, man. He's so cool.
Like, I saw them play Hellfest. Like, there was a year they came out. I went and I was like, "What is this?" And I just left. They started playing it live, and everyone was booing. I think, and I just left. And I'm going like. Yeah, I never listened to anything else by them because like I just can't take them seriously. But I'm sure they're obviously an amazing band.
Evil Dave rocks.
Weird looking hair.
He's so cool.
What's going on? It's so shiny. It looks like it's like plastic. He's just glued it onto his head. What's going on there?
PVC trousers. And the soul patch. He's the coolest frontman ever.
Mate, legend.
Miss me with that shit.
I will say Pete Sandoval, the drummer of Morbid Angel, does not get enough recognition as a drummer. That dude like pioneered a lot of death metal drum techniques that a lot of bands use. Like everybody will credit like Dave Lombardo as being the drummer, but Pete Sandoval from Morbid Angel is the guy. And it's funny enough, going back to Cryptic Shift, like the vocals on the album actually reminded me a bit of Steve Tucker. You were a Morbid Angel, and a bit like what's his name from Gorguts, Luke LeMay.
Yeah.
Like I had quite a similar tone, that kind of that mid-range tone, which I quite like.
Yeah.
Which I think fits the album too quite well, because I think one of the problems with a lot of death metal these days is a lot of vocalists have went too guttural to the point where it just becomes ridiculous and it sounds
like farts in a
stupid.
bath. Yeah.
Yeah, it just sounds like a fucking toilet being flushed.
It does.
Yeah.
Parts of the bar.
Yeah, so that bubbly, burpy shit sound.
Like the only band I think that done it well was Demolik, which are
I think I listened to them once.
they're a Finnish death metal band. They released one album called Nespith or Nespith, however you pronounce it, and they've got like the most complicated song titles ever. And funnily enough, they're also an uber technical
Nice.
death metal band, and a lot of actually Cryptic Shift's album really reminds me of Demolik at time. It has that same tone, which is even like that slightly happy tone you were talking about. Like both bands have that kind of, it's kind of like a bit of a jolly feel to the riffs.
Like upbeat, yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that. I dig that. So Cryptic Shift, fucking good album, really good band. Like every single member of that band must be incredible musicians for them all to be able to play that music.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can't just do that if like one member's a little bit shit. So 10 out of 10, Cryptic Shift. What are we gonna actually rate them though?
Well, I would say, I would give it, I'm going to be so boring because all my ratings have been so similar.
7.2?
Yeah, to be proper diplomatic, 7.25. Now, I think, okay, I'm going to give 2 ratings. And what I mean by this is, because I think it's fair to rate them as a new artist,
Yeah.
and how much impact it's had in an immediate sense. And for that reason, I'd give it like a solid 8.5.
I agree. I think it's, I give it an 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really liked it. It really took me by surprise. And I think, how it will be rated among other albums is something that I'll only be able to do once the album's been out for a few years.
Yeah, I get you.
So-
I get you. I think we're very similar then. Like,
I just overthink reviewing shit, basically.
I overthink everything.
Yeah.
So.
No, really good album. Like I really heavily enjoyed it. So kudos to those guys for creating a good bit of art there.
Yeah, I definitely want to reach out to those guys and like just give them a big old thumbs up. Thank you so much, Cryptic Shift. Visitations from Enceladus. Cool name. So cool to see some like hard sci-fi out there and not just like space is cool and aliens. Like it's like legit stuff and like they're going into that 10th planet shit, which as long as it's not like going into the whole like weird anti-Semitic side of it, that's really cool,
Well, is there an anti-Semitic side to the
There's
10th planet?
always an anti-Semitic side.
What, they think that the 10th planet's going to crash into Israel or something?
There's always some kind of Zionist lizard alien
Oh.
shit going on.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course, yeah.
Yeah. But like, I'm sure they're very sound guys who aren't that kind of person. So well done, Cryptic Shift. Unless you are that kind of person, in which case let us know so we can change one of our
So we
reviews.
can change our rating.
Yeah, change our rating to -88 out of 10.
Go.
Maybe we should edit that bit out. I don't know. Shem's like, no, let's stay in. Shit. Okay, yeah, well, some new releases that have come out this week. Lingua Ignota released something for Bandcamp Friday. She has released some classically influenced stuff. So she's got something from, I believe, Handel, something from J.S. Bach, she's covered Iron Lung, and something I've forgotten. But it's fucking sick. Check it out. Lingua Ignota is one of the most just incredible vocalists I've ever fucking heard. Well, yeah, Lingua Ignota, she released something recently. Check it out. I'd like to mention that the Black Heart are also doing a fundraiser at the moment because they're in danger of closing. So if you have the chance to go and check it out, you can win some really fucking cool prizes. And there's new prizes every week. They need 100 grand to stay open, otherwise they're gone. And like they are one of the most important venues in London.
It's a great venue.
Yeah.
Great venue. Great sounds, just great atmosphere.
Yeah.
Always like the Black Heart.
Yeah, like the sound engineers there are amazing. Like Paula is fucking sick. Like the best sound that you could get from a room that's shaped really weird. And yeah, like the people who work there are so lovely, and it's just like all the underground bands in London have played that venue, and if you want to hear more underground bands, if that venue closes, then you're going to be hard pressed to find like affordable shows in like an intimate venue to go to. So if you have the dollar, go and check it out. You can win some cool shit. That's my pitch. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I think that's I can't really follow that. Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, thank you so much for watching. If you've watched this far, please check out our other videos. Feel free to like and subscribe, etc. The old shebang. We'd love your support. Let us know if you want us to review anything in particular. If you disagree with us, let us know. We'd happily host your comments on our internet places and stuff, and potentially even reply to you. It's always good to have a conversation. And yeah, thank you for watching. This is Serpent Temple out. See ya.
See ya.